Numerology Podcast. I am your host, Novalee. I'm a professional numerologist and writer, and in this podcast, we're just gonna nerd out, which means we're gonna talk names, we're gonna talk numbers, numerology, astrology, the connections between the different esoteric fields, we'll do case studies, and so much more. Now, numerology is the spiritual and practical study of the numbers in your birthday, the letters in your name, and the vibration and power of which they are the expression of in the world. So as a numerologist, I see the numbers in your birthday as an expression of what your soul wants to explore in this lifetime. In this episode, we're going to talk about the 9 base numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So all compound numbers can be reduced to a digit sum. One number. These are the numbers that we are looking at. So if you were born on a day that has 2 digits, like the 28th or the 13th or the 22nd, you will have to find the digit sum to find your base number. Different schools of thought within numerology look at a birthday in different ways, but in Chaldean numerology, we look at the day you were born as the most important information. The second most important information is the year. So if you want to get everything out of this episode on base numbers, you can also calculate the digit sum of the year you were born. See, I was born in 1986. If you add up all those numbers, you get 24, and then you add up those 2 and 4, and then you get 6. So that's how I know that one of my base numbers is 6. So the first base number is the day, and the second base number is the year. Yes, you can pause the podcast for a moment if you just need a moment to calculate your own base numbers. But by now, you should hopefully have 2 numbers, your first base number, which is the day, and your second base number, which is the year. Now, base numbers are a term that we use to talk about the 9 numbers. We could also call them core numbers, core vibrations. In different kinds of numerology, we might call them life path numbers, or heart's vibration, or bigger or smaller personality. But these terms can seem kind of limiting. And from a Chaldean numerologist perspective, we look at the bigger picture, and each number has an expression in the world, and we're looking at that expression. And when it comes to people, it can become very specific, but in general, we also encounter these vibrations in years, in countries, in cities, in names of buildings. So these vibrations are everywhere. But of course, it's really interesting when we look at personality and a human being and look at how the vibration is expressed through them and how it might be stifled, held back, challenged, supported in any way. You are a 1 if you were born on the 1st, the 10th, the 19th, or the 28th of any month of any year. You're also a 1 if the digit sum of the year you were born becomes 1. Now, 1s are one of our leaders. This is the number for beginnings, the start of everything, the first original spark of creativity. 1s are, in a sense, egotistical. They like being the first one through the door, the first one on the scene. They like starting things. There is a little project manager embedded in every 1. One of the pitfalls for any 1s out there are the idea that they have to do everything themselves. Since this is like a very pushy and in that sense like masculine, outward faced and oriented number vibration, they like to just do it all themselves. So if you are a 1, you probably need to learn to delegate. And with delegation, I don't mean just the stuff that you're not so good at. I mean also the stuff that you might be good at, but it's just not your genius zone. Lots of 1s become like heads of companies, the person in a group of friends who decide where the group should go, where they should hang out. And if a 1 is a little unbalanced, unsupported in any way, and maybe not so lucky to get their ideas validated by others, they become a little micromanaging. Manipulation is the lowest end of the spectrum for a 1 when they don't get their way. Since they have such a strong drive to succeed and a belief that they know what's right, they can start manipulating the situation or the people around them if they don't get their way. But personal freedom is important to them, and they have life goals surrounding leadership, delegation, and they need to embrace and open up to their own spirituality and intuition. When we are on the forefront of change, it's important that we listen within. And the life lesson for anyone is to balance the relationships and the work life. Often ones can become so sucked into their work, it can become everything they think about. They can arrange their life around it, and they need to figure out a way to balance, relationships and work. They often have spiritual abilities, a very strong intuition, and a way of tuning into others and seeing potential, which is very helpful when you have a little project manager inside and you're looking for people to delegate to, because you actually do know who you should be handing stuff over to. Of famous people with the base number 1 somewhere in their birthday, there is Coco Chanel, Colin Firth, Kylie Minogue, Bill Clinton, Marilyn Monroe, Elon Musk. Who else? Amy Schumer is also a 1. Now let's move on to base number 2. And you are a 2 if you were born on the 2nd, the 11th, the 20th, or the 29th of any month and any year. And the same if you find the digit sum of the year you were born becomes 2, then you have 2 in your birthday, and therefore as part of your base number lineup as well. Now 2s are sensitive and playful people. They are a lot more receptive to the world and the energies around them than 1s. They have life goals surrounding play and creativity, pleasure in that sense. And the pitfalls for many 2s are they are such good listeners and such good friends to other people, but they're not always aware of how much they carry the vibration of the people around them. So if you're a 2 and you're a little bit depressed, you need to be aware that you're not just surrounded by depressed people, because this openness of this vibration and this sensitivity that you come into the world to utilize and show everyone around you, the depth of your emotional life. It's very easy to get overloaded. Too much of other people's emotional life, their burdens, their challenges. And often when 2s are depressed, it's simply from being too receptive to the heavier vibrations in the world. Because if you surround yourself with happy people, you can get fired up really quickly. 2s can often get drunk, even when they're not drunk, simply by walking into a good party where the atmosphere and vibration is high, because they are so receptive to the energy around. Now, many 2s, often as kids also, are very gentle and sensitive, and the range from laughter to tears is often in play throughout the day, and it's important if you are a parent to a 2 to put down boundaries, because the kid might not be able to. And it goes as well when you grow up as a 2, you need to be your own loving parent. You need to take care of your own boundaries, decide who you're going to hang out with, knowing that it's almost impossible for you to not take on some of the emotional life around you. So 2s are here to work on lightness, joy, fun, and pleasure, and boundaries, and the balanced sensitivity, being grounded, figuring out what emotional life is yours and what is other people. And there's a deep spiritual ore in any 2. Their sensitivity, not just in personal relationships, but also in their relationship to their own spirituality. Now, famous people with the base number 2 somewhere in their birthday. We have Jennifer Aniston, Cher, Viola Davis, Dwayne Johnson, David Lynch, Mr. Rogers. That kind of makes sense, right? And Oprah Winfrey. Let's move on to base number 3. If you are a 3, you were born on the 3rd, the 12th, the 21st, or the 30th of any month in any year. And as well, if you were born in a year that has the digits of 3, then you are a 3 as well. Now, 3 is the number of strength and follow through. It is a very brainy number. I know no 3s who do not like to learn, read, explore. Many 3s take multiple courses, multiple trainings, different kinds of educations throughout their life because there is a hunger for knowledge and it's fun to work. For any 3, there is a sense of accomplishments come through work, not so much when they sit back and relax. And since there is a life theme and lesson and goal surrounding success, they really have to figure out what success means to them. So if you're a 3 and you're working hard and you're often the hardest worker in the room, you have to figure out and recalibrate your brain sometimes to know that it's not just the hours you put in. Sometimes it's the small steps. Sometimes it's just working on your dream for 10 minutes and then putting it away. That's what success is made of. You don't have to break your bones and hustle very hard to get there, even though you're kind of wired that way, like showing up early, going home late. So many 3s make it to leadership positions, which is simply, not to discount the work they do, but it's also showing up. They do show up. If you're a 3, you show up. You're a loyal partner, friend, worker in that sense. You often have to work on the nuances. Sometimes when success is in our blood and something we thirst for, we can get afraid of it and we can decide to live slightly in the shadow and not have a nuanced sense of our own accomplishments. So we can either say this was a total failure or this was a total success, which is rarely the truth. Even the most amazing things could probably be bettered in some way, and even the worst failures we can learn from. So nuances are like a big thing for many 3s to really understand, to not decide that, it didn't work out, so I'm just gonna change career, do something completely different. They often have a very strong intuition, but because there's such a brainy side to many 3s, they can kind of think themselves out of some of the good decisions they could make. Now, famous people with 3 as their first base number, we have Winston Churchill, Darwin, Jennifer Hudson, Kim Kardashian, Abraham Lincoln, and Malala. Now let's move on to base number 4. You are a 4 if you were born on the 4th, the 13th, the 22nd, or the 31st of any month in any year. So 4 is the number of change, and in our 4s we have the rebels, the revolutionaries, the people who think outside the box. Many 4s have a tendency to define themselves by the groups they are not part of, by the things they don't believe in. So for any 4s, they need to find their people. They need to find community. They often build community. They often find the 8s. You will understand why when we get to that base number, because they share some common traits. And 4s are really here to pull down the future, make it real, because they look for the gaps, the things that are missing in their eyes, the things that most people would not even notice. I have a strong feeling that whoever came up with the cell phone was a 4. Simply by throwing out the idea, wouldn't it be so much smarter if I could bring my phone when I left the house? Even if the 4 didn't create the cell phone, the very thought of something is missing, there's a gap here, why don't we fix it, is a very 4 thought. Core goals and challenges for any 4, it is innovation, that's what they're here for. And they have some themes around self-worth and, creating belonging and creating community. And also finding and creating that deeper connection with others. Because there can also be something sad about settling for less And it is possible for any 4 to find close friends, a sense of family. But it's not something that comes easy. And it's often something that a 4 has to work for throughout their life. And there is a big spiritual gift of healing for many 4s. And they have to unlock that for themselves and figure out what healing looks to them and how they can commit to changing the world through not just tearing things down and pointing out what's missing, but actually building. So famous people with 4 as their first base number, we got Maya Angelou, Fidel Castro, Whoopi Goldberg, Barack Obama, J.K. Rowling, Angelina Jolie, Stevie Wonder, and Margaret Thatcher. Let's move on to base number 5. This is the middle of our 9 numbers, and the base number 5 is the communicator, and you're a 5 if you were born on the 5th, the 14th, or the 23rd of any month in any year, and you're also a 5 if the digit-sum of the year you were born becomes 5. So 5s are all about movement and energy. We find lots of 5s in sales because communication and exchange and sales and money, business, and all that comes with that is like breathing to a 5. They are born to communicate. Even the 5s who decide that, speaking is a little too much, they often become writers. We find them in casting agencies and connecting people and the world in so many different ways. They usually have many projects going on at any one time, and that's actually one of the things that can slow them down. So 5s are all about that connection and that more fast-paced, but since they're doing so many things at once, they actually slow down their ultimate forward movement, and sometimes they can get lost. Many 5s need to take a nap. This is my ultimate little tip. If you are a 5 and you feel burned out, or you feel like there's too much on your plate, you probably already know this. But naps are your best friend. Getting that sleep every night and not running on empty is just really, really important. So since the theme for any 5 is communication, and if that's the life goal, it might also mean that if you're a very challenged 5, if you've not been supported throughout your life, if you have a not harmonious name, which we will cover in one of the next episodes, then it can be very challenging to open your heart and open your mouth and your throat and send your truth into the world. And often it can be a good counterbalance and a help for you to find more grounded base numbers to work with. Because if you're all about the connection, then someone else could be all about the grounding and the follow through. When we look at famous people with 5 as their first base number, we have Adele, Michael Caine, Einstein, Audrey Hepburn, Quincy Jones, Gustav Klimt, Karl Marx, William Shakespeare, Kate Winslet, and Pharrell Williams. Let's move on to base number 6. If you were a 6, you were born on the 6th, the 15th, or the 24th of any month of any year. So 6s are born with a beautiful and hard life lesson around love and beauty. Now, for some people, I meet them and they're like, oh, beauty, but my husband is not very stylish and he's a 6. And this sense of beauty also comes with like a portion of harmony. So even if you know a 6 who doesn't really care that much about like flowers and fancy clothes, you will still notice that they are interested in harmony. And 6s actually have the ability to harmonize a room they walk into. Since the life lesson has to do with love, they also have some big lessons around what love is not. And love is not codependency. It's not being addicted. It's not supporting people who don't support you. It's not pouring from an empty cup. Any 6 needs to spend some time figuring out what's truly important to them on a self-care level, because they are the kind of people who support other people, take care of us. Many 6s find themselves, if not in the business of making the world more beautiful through like artistic and creative fields, through jobs as caregivers, social workers, teachers, places where they have interactions with groups of people and try to help them with whatever they need help with. And as they spend so much energy and so much love on other people, they really need to figure out how to fill their own cup. Because if you are a 6 and you find it very easy to give and very hard to receive, then you are out of balance. And there's some big gifts waiting for you on the other side when you figure out how to put down boundaries and not give to people who are not giving back to you. Or, in a job where you don't get paid enough for your hard work. When we look at famous people with 6 as their first base number, we have George Clooney, Amelia Earhart, Idris Elba, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Joan of Arc, Steve Jobs, and Barbra Streisand. Let's move on to base number 7. If you're a 7, you were born on the 7th, the 16th, or the 25th of any month of any year. And of course, if you were born in a year where the digit sum is 7, then you are a 7 as well. Now, 7 is the number of spiritual insights, detaching itself from human limitations, connecting to the higher realms. 7 is the gentlest base number. 7s are artistic, creative, little poets. 7s usually spend a lot of their day daydreaming, not really being here in this world. They don't always come with a strong physical constitution, not with the kind of endurance that some of the other base numbers like 1s and 3s have, but they do come with a different kind of gift. They know what synergy means. They have a sense of being able to build something out of other people's ideas or ideas they simply download from above. So if you're a 7, this creative streak and this sense of synergy is something that you really have to value. Often the gifts we have are the gifts we don't care about. We can spend a lot of time looking for, accolades that don't really belong to us or achievements that are really far from our skill set. And if you're a 7, your skill set is in the realm of ideas and light and spirituality. It's not always the hard work, and since it's not something that you're built for, it's not something you need to pursue. You need to clear your own channel and trust your own intuition and trust that it will lead you where you need to be going. Many 7s also have delicate constitutions and simply need to be aware of what they eat and the people they are around, since this channel that I'm talking about, this channel that you are in the world, it really needs a particular kind of atmosphere around it. So while you can download on the subway or in your car or just walking around, the quality of your downloads will be better if you create a life that supports this journey. Now, when we look at famous people with 7 as their first base number, we have Jane Austen, Ian McKellen, Al Pacino, Prince, Susan Sontag, Virginia Woolf, Marie Curie, and Andrew Carnegie. Now let's move on to base number 8. If you're an 8, you were born on the 8th, the 17th, or the 26th of any month in any year. Now 8 is the number for letting go of karmic contracts. And this means that if you're an 8, you have signed up to a lot of challenge in this life. It means that you come with a specific, strong constitution, that you have a lot of power, and that a lot of what you hold inside is not visible to other people. Many 8s have a very deep, rich emotional life that we are not aware of, the people around them. So if you're an 8, you need to be aware of this, and you also need to celebrate and cultivate balance in your life. You cannot cut off your spiritual and sensitive emotional life, and you also cannot ignore it and just decide to live in only the physical world, ignoring all the hints and nudges you get from inside. You are really here to build a bridge between heaven and earth, and that's a mouthful. That's a big thing, and it's something that you'll be challenged by throughout your life. So many 8s also come with a big portion of temperament, and sometimes that's hard to figure out what to do with all this emotion inside. The sense of power and focus that you have are deeply related to your sense of worth. like the fours, you don't think within the same normal boundaries as many others. You feel like an outsider. You might often feel like your emotional life is deeper or more complex than the people around you, or that people just go, you know what, now we've talked about the deep shit for a little too long. I need to lighten up. And since you're here to explore the darkness as much as the light, you sometimes need to figure out who you can share those insights with, which would often be the fours. Now, eights have life goals and lessons surrounding power, passion, authenticity, and strength. Famous people with 8 as their first base number: David Bowie, Jim Carrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Queen Latifah, Jules Verne, Kanye West, Helen Mirren, Angela Merkel, and Serena Williams. Let's move on to our very last base number in this very long podcast, base number 9. If you're a 9, you were born on the 9th, the 18th, or the 27th of any month in any year. And of course, if you were born in a year with the digit sum is 9, then you're a 9 too. So 9 is the number of completion. It wraps up this line of numbers from 1 to 9. And 9 have leadership as part of its vibration. And this is not the kind of leadership that we find in the 1s who decide to be first on the field, or the 3s who decide to get there by showing up early and going home late. The leadership we find in the 9 is found in authenticity. It's found in being the warrior with an open heart, which can be very hard for many 9s. They can often decide, you know what, I'll just close my heart and keep going, and I'll become a leader anyway. But the true celebration and the true recognition comes from when the 9 with the strong leadership abilities decides to lead with an open heart. I feel like Elizabeth Gilbert is such a beautiful example of someone who gets more and more success whenever she opens her heart. Now, 9s have a sensitive heart and great emotional depth. They are very brave, but they can also be kind of reckless and decide to go all in on things that might not always pan out. We have the warrior strength inside the 9 vibration, but that also means that there is a great deal of anger at injustice, things that are not right in the world. 9s are warrior in the sense that they fight for what's right and for what their heart is open to. There's a significant spiritual element and resource within any 9, but if it's not supported in their name, which we will cover in the next episode, it can be challenging, and they can decide to not open up to this very significant spiritual side to them. Often I find 9s that have a lot of headaches don't have them just because they're working very hard, or not sleeping enough, or not drinking enough water, but also because the spirituality and their guides are actually knocking so hard that it'll give them a headache. So they have life goals surrounding strength and power and this authentic kind of leadership. When we look at the famous people who have 9 as their first base number, we find Tom Hanks, Whitney Houston, Cynthia Nixon, Nelson Mandela, Isabella Rossellini, Jada Pinkett Smith, John Travolta, and Theodore Roosevelt Jr. See, this was a really short description of all 9 base numbers. And in Chaldean numerology, this is our way in. When we look at a person, we look at their base numbers and we see how are you supported. If this is a spectrum of energy and of a vibration, where are you on the scale? If you are one who is manipulating your way through life, you're not supported, and you're operating from the lower end of the spectrum. If you're a 2 who's working really hard, then you're not connected to your playful and creative self. If you're a 7 who've decided to not use any of your creative abilities, then you're also not utilizing everything that you have in your arsenal. And for each base number, we can look at what this number wants to experience and add to the world. What kind of aim, what kind of goals, what kind of life lessons are embedded in it. Now, if this sounds really interesting, I want to direct you to the book, A Little Bit of Numerology, that I wrote, where I go much deeper with all 9 base numbers and the chakras they are connected to and the zodiac signs and so on and so forth. Now, in the next episode of the Numerology Podcast, we're going to talk about names, which is where it gets really interesting and really specific in how a numerologist can see into you, can see into your life experience, can see into your personality, and can see just how it feels to be you in the world. Now, if you like this podcast, please subscribe and share with your friends.